Organisation Youth Capital says that the latest gazette from the Home Affairs Department about the critical skills we need to grow the economy shows our country lacks the right skills to create jobs. It says that the skills companies need the most are in the information technology space. Companies also need people who can work in management, finance and engineering. Kristal Duncan-Williams is the project lead at Youth Capital. Kristal, good afternoon to you. What does this gazette tell us about the skills we need most as a country? I mean, clearly we don't have them.
Yes, I mean, the list is immense, Stephen. It's really long. And it ranges, many of it is for sort of mid-management and quite technical skills, as you highlighted now. But surprisingly, there are some, office administration type roles listed on the scarce skills list the Gazette put out. And, that's was very surprising to me at the time when I read it, because we hear of all these TVET graduates who have business administration qualifications who are sitting without jobs. And so clearly there's a disconnect, even for these entry-level jobs. People are supposedly on paper trained for the job, but they aren't seeming to access the job market because we see these jobs appear on a scarce skills list. Things like mid-management or very technical skills we can understand are niche, and we need to create pipelines for young people to attain those mid-management positions. But how can we get there if we aren't even getting young people into the labor market, at the bottom of the ladder? And so I think it's because the issue of unemployment is really complex, and it goes beyond just the hard and technical skills that the economy keeps saying that it needs.
I mean, is it about the, and I hate we keep coming back to this, don't we? The first job, without the first job, you don't get the experience to move to the second job, and without the second job, you don't get to move into the first tier of mid-management. And is that, again, the problem? There's many people have made this point. We have an economy of insiders and outsiders.
Yeah, and it gets simplified into that, first job, once your foot's in the door, you're more likely to get a second job. But it's also what comes with that first job. Yes, we speak about the work experience, and that's obvious. The soft skills, the things that the university and a TVET are not going to teach you. How to send an email, how to show up for work, these things. So that is part of the first work experience. The other thing which really gets spoken about is social connections and social networks. Young people are disconnected from, as you speak about insiders and outsiders, many young people live outside of the labor market in households and communities where very few people are employed. And so getting that first job also gives them an in into those networks, which allow them to find their next opportunity. And so it's these kinds of nuances of the first job that we need to unpack and understand. It's why giving somebody a first work experience in a proper company and not just having them, stand on the side of the road as part of an expanded public works program and wave a flag on the side of the road. That first work experience is not a meaningful first work experience because it doesn't allow them to tap into those networks and those soft skills. And so I think we also have to get quite specific when we speak about a first job, what makes a good first job, and what we say the stickiness of that first job for the young person to be able to stick with the labor market, whether in that job or a different one.
And I mean, this goes back to the sort of generationalized nature of unemployment, doesn't it? I mean, that if someone has a university degree or if their parents have a job, they're going to be able to intern at a friend of their parents' firm, then they get the first job from there, and then they're in the system. And it's about that. One of the ways that we're supposed to get around that is SETAs. They're supposed to train young people, give them that experience. They work with businesses to do that. Are the SETAs working?
No, very rarely. We hear a few good stories here and there about some SETAs. And SETAs, like TVET colleges, you have some really great functional departments, and then you have some really terrible ones. And, ahead of the elections and ahead of the next administrative term, Youth Capital is pushing an agenda for 3 points. The one is key, is SETAs, and that we need demand-led training that is led by industry. We always speak about demand-led training, but currently, it's over-bureaucratized by SETAs. It's an administrative nightmare for businesses, and it's not producing the skills that the industry needs. It's also too cumbersome. You hear stories about NGOs saying, we want to train these young people. We have the ability, we have the infrastructure, we have the knowledge, but the accreditation process to be a training institute for a SETA is overly cumbersome. And you have businesses saying, we have young people coming out of TVETs, and they've got this logbook where we've got to check off ridiculous activities that they've got to complete that I don't need in my business. Why does the young person have to complete this logbook of activities and tasks and competencies that aren't required by industry? So we really need to flip the switch then and have industry lead and SETAs play a supportive role as opposed to how it is currently.
Do you think that the SETA system will ever work? Or do we need to chuck it out and try something else? Because there is a large range of interventions to try and help young people into employment. Some of them work, some of them don't. But if from what you say about SETAs is true, do we need to hoy them all out?
Well, I think we're talking a radical overhaul. I think there has to be some oversight, right? We've seen what's happened with the likes of Dublin and other colleges now, where when things are privatized, that things can go awry. We have to have a level of standard that industry can trust. So I think there has to be some bureaucracy involved. But I think we've got to, as I say, flip the model on its head and have industry bodies, as the SETAs are around particular industries, because it's very industry specific, have, industry bodies around these particular, areas of expertise, and then have SETA just form an administrative role, an oversight role, saying that if a person comes out with this qualification, that it can be trusted by industry. So I think you do have to have a level of government oversight, but I think the role of industry has to be vastly increased in that entire system.
There's so many aspects to all of this, and one of the things you've suggested is that I think 8 out of 10, it may be higher than that, but 8 out of 10 people or young people who are unemployed have never worked before. I mean, for them, they must just be thinking they will never work.
And that's the sad reality. Many young people who are on the tail end of youth, and we speak about youth up until the age of 35, speak about the fact that they've been looking for years, some people up to a decade. Once you get to that stage, you almost become unemployable to the market because you have no skills, but you're competing with younger counterparts. And that's the reality that we face. This consistently high level of youth unemployment becomes a perpetual unemployment problem because the person is no longer young, and what hopes are they for that person? And so that's why we really do need this multi-level approach. We need to look at people coming through the education system, but we also need to look at people that are already in outside of the education system and how they can be given short skills or training that can equip them for a workplace and allow them to enter the labor market. And I think we spoke about LAP, we heard about the launch of LAP before this, and again that's just another government intervention that's been launched, more money being put into this. So they're going to train young people and work with the SETAs. But what does that really look like practically? Also with the new administration coming in, what's going to happen there? Lots of money being chucked at the problem again, but maybe not so much strategy behind it.
Kristal Duncan-Williams, thank you, project lead at Youth Capital. Really do appreciate the time. Youth unemployment, probably the biggest long-term problem that we face. More news to come. Also,